Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Matt Watson. Hi, Matt.
What's going on, man?
It's movie night.
It was definitely movie night last night for me.
I'll tell you what. So it was about, I don't even know because I can't count that high. I had my shoes off, everything. It was about 200 episodes ago that we did a special on business documentaries. You can still go find it in the feed. And we were going to follow up on all of these great things. We were going to watch these movies. Now I watched them. And I'm just going to say that Matt didn't watch the movie. Now, I don't know which one that was, but there's for those of you that are really into business, achievement, stuff like that, business documentaries can be a really a fruitful and educational time that you can spend. Now, I spend a lot of time. I watch a lot of TV shows and documentaries and stuff like that are about business, or I don't know, I just like a good story. And so we have wanted to do this for a while, and we're going to do it, people. It's time. This is the first ever movie night. And we are going to start with a very interesting film today. It is titled Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Now, Matt, have you watched the movie?
I did. I watched it last night.
Okay. So now for those of you listening, there will be some minor spoiler alerts here. So, you're going to need to maybe watch it first, but there's not a whole lot to spoil here. So I'm going to give you a little background. Jiro Ono. He's currently 94 years old. He's a Japanese man. He's a chef, and he's the owner of Sukiya Bashi Jiro in Tokyo, Japan. This is a restaurant that is only 10 seats, and it's in a subway station. Now, based on what I just told you, Matt, does that sound like a world-class restaurant?
Sounds like a weird-ass place to have a restaurant.
The 10 seats in a subway?
Yeah.
Okay, so now with that, Jiro and his restaurant have had Michelin stars. Yep. Are you aware of what a Michelin star is?
I am, yes.
Have you eaten at a Michelin star restaurant before? I have not.
No, it's a weird underground rating system that nobody understands, but everybody wants. And there are only 4 states in the United States that have a Michelin rated restaurant. That shows you how. Yeah, I looked it up last night. They were in the United States. It was New York, California, Illinois, and Washington. That was it.
Okay, so in regards to a Michelin star, now Michelin is, and that's Michelin, and so Michelin had its first restaurant rating guide come out in 1900, and it's French origin. Now, if you were going to earn a Michelin star, 1 star would be the restaurant is considered to be very good in its category, but it's limited in some ways. The restaurant has a quality menu and prepares cuisine to a consistently high standard, but it may lack a unique element that would bring people back over and over again. Now, that said, if you have a 1-star Michelin rating, you're still like Matt said, well, you said there's only 4 states that have a Michelin restaurant.
Wouldn't a lot of restaurants meet that criteria?
I think it still has. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it. But this is only for the true cream of the crop, apparently. So a 2-star Michelin restaurant has excellent cuisine delivered in a unique way. This restaurant has something exceptional to offer and is worth a detour while traveling. Now, the 3-star. Now, I think Startup Hustle is definitely a 3-star Michelin place. Yeah, absolutely. Always has been ever since the very first episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I always say that. And I'm looking at myself and the video. I do have a mohawk right now, which I have grown so tired of quarantine. It is now time for hair games. It might be a blonde mohawk by the next movie night. We'll see.
With some blue highlights, please.
Possibly. Now, here's the thing. If you get a 3-star, now this is the highest rating, that restaurant has exceptional cuisine and is literally worth traveling to its country of origin just to go to the restaurant.
Yep.
That better be a damn good restaurant, man. If I'm like traveling to a foreign country to go to, but the 3-star, this is the top. So now chefs from all over, they literally kill themselves for these ratings. Like they are dedicated, like it is it. And if you are a 3-star Michelin chef in that world, you're famous. Now, Matt, are you a cook? I'm not.
Not really. Nope.
Did you ever work at a restaurant?
Nope.
Okay, I did briefly. I've worked at like a couple, but I was no good at it. I didn't like it. Now I know some people. Do you know people that are like the culinary people that are like, cooking is the most amazing thing I can do with my time?
Well, you know, I think cooking is one of those things where we all can cook like basic stuff at home, right? But then you get to a certain level of it, and it's more like you're a chemist.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And it's never really been my thing. I'm great at eating. Not so good. But you know, the thing that I don't like, it's the preparation. I don't like preparing and cleaning up. I like the act of actually cooking the stuff. I'm okay with that part.
Well,
but it's all the like chopping and shaving and fluffing, and
that was one of the things that Jiro said in the movie is actually 95% of the work is the preparation before it gets to him and before it gets to the final serving of the customer.
So let's talk about Jiro for a minute. Now, this is, here we are on a startup podcast, and it's for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Jiro is very much an entrepreneur. Can we check that box?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this guy, and he's still alive now. Now this movie's from 2011. That doesn't affect its quality or storyline. So in the time of the movie, dude is 84 years old.
Not a young guy.
No. But he started working when he was 7 years old.
Yep. His dad died.
So my oldest child is 5.5. That would mean she's 18 months away from starting her career. But yeah, so this was, it's legitimately a different time, and so here he is, his dad bails, his mom's kind of out of the picture at this point, and he goes to work and gets a job at a restaurant. It was 33 years later in 1965 when he opens his restaurant. Now, at this point, he is considered by his contemporaries to be the greatest living sushi craftsman on the planet. So let's talk a little bit about why. Now, with movie night, I think that we'll pick a movie. We hope that you will go watch it too. Now, there are some lessons to be learned that could be positive or could be negative. Some of the stuff that we're gonna profile on movie night might be written around things that people did that were really dumb.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with Jiro, I think that, so this guy gets up every single day and goes to work at 5 a.m. He works from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
And he hates days off.
He does. He does. Like literally, he and they're interviewing this guy. So he is a quiet Japanese man. But by the way, if I'm ever an old Japanese man, I want to be Jiro because he's legit. I mean, this guy is like the absolute picture and definition of dedication. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was incredible talking about how he loves work so much and his dedication to his craft. Like, it's a big thing they talked about in the movie is that, you have to pick what you want to do and dedicate your whole life to it. And I mean, he definitely represents what a lot of us need to do if we want to be masters of what we do is daily, sharpening of the saw of getting better every day and dedicating your life to it. And one of the things that blew me away is he said it takes 10 years to become a master sushi chef. And for us that are laymen at sushi, it seems like a pretty damn simple thing to do. Like they cut a piece of tuna and they slapped it on a piece of rice. It seems pretty damn simple, right? But you watch this movie, you get a whole new appreciation And that was one of the big things that he talked about. Like when he started doing sushi, everybody felt like sushi had been perfected. Like, oh yeah, everybody knows how to make sushi and lots of people are good at it. There's no way to innovate in this space, right? And that was like 50 years ago. And he started making new recipes and new ways to perfect things that nobody had ever saw before, which made him become quickly the like best sushi chef in the world. And this was like 50 years ago.
So you mentioned that Jiro loves to work. I don't think he works, man. I think that he does. I think he is doing what he loves to do. I don't think he sees it as work. And I think that that's one of the interesting lessons. Now, you've heard me say before that about, I don't know, 20 years ago, I decided making money was going to be my hobby, and I haven't worked a day since.
Yep.
I mean, it's the same kind of philosophy. Like, I don't look at a lot of the stuff that I do, and I feel that I'm very dedicated and borderline obsessed with a lot of stuff. But that's that mental process. If you're doing what you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. And I think that that's where he's at. He it's interesting when they're interviewing him. And by the way, this whole thing's in Japanese. Like,
it is.
You read it.
Yes.
You read it in subtitles. And I watched it with my wife, who, by the way, is not a fan of documentaries, but she found it very fascinating. But she said at one point, she goes, his life seems really boring. And it was at a time in the movie where he's literally saying, every day I'm ecstatic. I am beyond excited to be here getting better at what I do. Now, he's literally saying, he's like, you got to pick something, you got to dedicate your life to it. Now, Jiro's sons worked at the restaurant. He has two sons. One of them is 50 years old and is still technically his apprentice.
Yep. Can you imagine?
So yeah, that's crazy. Now, the other one, who's younger, has opened his own restaurant. Now, the question is why? Now, in Japanese culture, oftentimes the eldest son will take the place of the father. Yep. So he's kind of in line doing that. Now, we mentioned preparation. So the son gets up every day and rides a bike with a like a styrofoam cube on the handlebars, basically, down to the fish market. And it's interesting. Like, he's got a guy for everything.
Oh yeah.
Did you notice that? He's like, yeah, I got my tuna guy, I got my mackerel guy, I got my octopus guy. And then the thing is he said, I've been doing this my whole entire life, but every single one of these vendors knows these things better than I do.
Yeah, and one of the big things one of the lines I really liked, he said, is they're talking about the tuna guy, and the tuna guy is like, if there are 10 tunas, only one has to be the best.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that was the whole thing about the restaurant, is having the absolute best piece of fish that can possibly exist. And they don't even care what it costs. They care about perfection.
Well, I think we could say they don't care what it costs, because it's a minimum of $300 per seat.
Yes.
To eat at this restaurant.
And the prices went up since then even.
They don't serve appetizers. They don't serve drinks. You get sushi.
Yeah.
And you don't order it. You eat what they serve you.
It was funny. He said they used to do appetizers and drinks, and people would spend all their time, and then they'd only eat like 5 pieces of sushi later. And he's like, screw this shit. People came here for the sushi, and now you get nothing but 20 pieces of sushi or whatever. And that's it.
Okay. So I think the lesson there is like, be great at something.
Well, and I think that's the key. They talked a lot about in the documentary, is they're like, there is absolutely no secrets to anything we do. Anybody can make sushi. We make sushi just like everybody else. It's just we have perfected every single aspect of it, and we go to great detail of every aspect of it every single day with consistency. But there are no secrets. There are none at all. It's just we do a better job than everybody else every single day.
I think another important thing, we go back to like the fish market, is, I've always loved being around other people that had that dedication / obsession with what they were doing. I find it really fascinating. Like, my buddy Jake Sinninger and Humphreys McGee is very much like this as a guitarist. Just the level of dedication and obsession, like literally knowing everything front and back. And it's that masterful understanding of what people are doing. And like I said, like, here's the thing though, okay, are you a genius or are you crazy? Are you obsessed or are you driven? I've been searching for years, looking for people that are masters at stuff that are just magically good at it. They're not, man. Like, you might have some talent for it. Then you have a passion for it, and then you work hard for it.
Well,
now,
one of the things he talked about in the movie, though, that I wrote down in my notes is that if people work really hard, they can be successful. But there is a next level above that. And the only way anyone ever achieves that is if they have some gifted talent. Yeah. And there is another level. Like, you talk about the guys at Humphreys McGee that are the best at what they do. I can play guitar forever, and I am never going to be as good at the guitar as them. They have a special talent. Yep. And I think the big thing to understand that a lot of people, who are listening, is you have to have that special talent in a lot of ways to reach that pinnacle level of success. I mean, you can work hard and you can be successful, but there are certain people that are so good at what they do because they have that talent, and you cannot replace it. You either have the talent or you don't. It's no doubt that no different than Mike Trout goes out and hits a bajillion home runs and nobody knows. Everybody can see that he does it, but not anybody can step up to the plate and do it. You either have the talent or you don't for some things in life.
But the people that have that level of talent, they still work ridiculously hard. And that's the whole point. I mean, it's like, you look at like Tiger Woods as a golfer back in his prime, who was fairly unbeatable. I mean, that guy was hitting hundreds of golf balls a day from when he was on Johnny Carson when he was like 5 years old.
There's no secrets about how to hit a golf ball, but he does it better than everybody else.
But that is repetition, it's dedication, and it's also like the science of things, like really breaking it down. And that's like, we go back to like the guitar, like a guitarist, like Jake knows how to play the chords front and backwards. Yeah. Like, I literally have a video on YouTube of him and I talking about that. And he's talking about sitting and looking at his guitar from like the other angle, not holding it, like staring at it face first and like calculating how to play everything backwards. Because if you can't do it frontwards and backwards, then you're not going to be totally a master. Now, one of the things with and I'll finish the seafood market thought is people that are masterful and at the top of their game and that achieve this level of success, they surround themselves by other great people. Yeah. I think that's an important, like, he's like, I can't get this done. I can't go out and catch these fish. I can't find them off the boat, and I'm not the one that needs to go say this 1 out of 10 is the best out of 10 and all that. And I think that while it seems as at first as, oh, here's a guy that's good at stuff. No, he's got a team. He has like the
world expert at tuna.
Yeah. Or how about the people like, okay, there's a guy in this that's been an apprentice there. He was there for 10 years and then they let him cook eggs.
Yes. Yeah. And it took him over 400 times to perfect.
After they let him do it. Yeah.
He tried 4 times a day for months before he could actually make it the right way.
Wouldn't you want to cry after 10 years if you finally got to cook eggs and they're like, nope. And then you got to like that 373rd try and they're, oh, you're still not there.
Yeah, that's insane.
I would have been like, what? So, all right.
One of the other things we talked about being masterful and expert at what you do and all of that. One of the other lines that I wrote down I thought was really good is they felt like for their food and their sushi, there was an exact moment of deliciousness where the food was better than at any other time based on the right temperature, the timing, how long ago they put on the topping, the exact temperature of their rice, the age of the fish, like every single detail. There was one exact moment when it was the most delicious to eat, and their job was to make that exact moment the exact moment that somebody ate it. And that level of scrutiny to every detail was amazing.
That means that in the event that it needed 7 hours or 7 minutes or whatever, that is the way. And they were, and Jiro is sitting there, he's talking about the service and the preparation and all of it. And he's comparing it to an orchestral situation where he's got to, coordinate all these different things. And, like, think about that. And, there's parts in this movie where they're trying what they're doing. And, think about it. It's got to be easy on some days to just want to maybe mail that in. You're like, oh, it's at 99%. These guys don't settle for that, like, which is nuts. And, that's.
Well, if you're doing the same damn thing every day, to some degree, it makes sense to be like, how do I do it a little bit better than I did yesterday? Right.
Right.
And now, after 50 years, you get a long way.
Look, if you are 1% better than you were yesterday at anything, and you keep that pace up, you become pretty damn good. It's just, that's just the math of it. You just get a little bit better. And why? Because you're not regressing. You don't have to spend time to get back to where you were. Now, I think that part of, like, with Jiro now, so is Jiro obsessed? Do you think that does he have an obsession?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you think that's unhealthy?
No, I think it's a quality that is important.
He's 94 years old and he's still alive. So
I think it's a quality for anybody who wants to be a master at what they do. And at one point they talked about, like, the five qualities
traits of a chef.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't write them down, but I
remember some of them. They were being obsessed with the quality. Cleanliness was one of them. I thought it was interesting. Impatience,
yeah.
Impatience was the one you wouldn't expect, but with that, I can appreciate that, because I'm impatient, and sometimes it's not good for what I'm doing, and sometimes it's the best thing ever. Like, being impatient on some levels has made me a better salesperson, because I get to the point and ask for the sale. Then it's challenging at other times, and I would imagine that would also be hard from a chef's perspective, because, like you said, like, if you have to wait 5 hours, you have to wait 5 hours. That's not always easy. One of the things I thought was interesting, you talk about that level of preparation. So octopus.
Yep.
Now, if you've had calamari or something like that, you've had it at some point, it felt like you were just chewing on rubber.
Right.
And he addresses that. He's like, when people don't do octopus right, it tastes like rubber, but it shouldn't. It should be filled with flavor. It should be soft. It should be chewy. So in order to do that, we massage the octopus for 50 minutes.
Yes. Isn't that crazy?
50 minutes.
So ironically, I had squid for dinner last night. My wife made squid.
Was it chewy?
We got it at the Asian market. And it was a little chewy, and now I'm thinking maybe I should have asked her to massage it for 30 minutes or so.
Ask your wife to massage your octopus for at least 40 minutes. And just see. Now, did she watch this with you?
A little bit. She was busy. She was cooking while I was watching it.
She was busy making octopus. Yeah. I see.
Squid.
So now, this relentless pursuit of perfection. Here's the thing I didn't highlight on. You say, is that obsession or that dedication, can it be unhealthy? I think it probably can be on some levels. Like, I can't imagine that Jiro has had like a remarkably strong home life. He even says that. He's like, I wasn't much of a parent outside of teaching my kids the virtues that I learned inside this restaurant.
Yeah.
Because he's there from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day that they're open, except for national holidays.
Well, and he said, though, he's like, I'd rather be at work than be at home and be bored. He's like, what would I do? Yeah. What would I do if I was at home right now?
So who do you know that you would most compare to Jiro? Because for me, it would have to be Jake Stenninger, from a musician standpoint. Because the dude's the same way, and I've known a couple other musicians that are like that. And I've asked him, I'm like, if you're not playing guitar, what then? He goes, well, then I'm thinking about it. Which is the same kind of thing.
I can't think of anybody I know that really reminds me of this, but.
Yeah, it's for me. It's the musician thing, because some of these people, it's like I said, they get up and the ones that are really great, like Jake really does. Like, he gets up his whole life is structured around it, and with that, in order to make that happen, we talk about surrounding yourselves with the right people. Like, I have some of the dedicated and obsessed qualities, and it's hard to shake. Like, it really, the obsessive part. Like, are you obsessed or are you driven? There's a lot of things in life that have that line down the middle, and it just depends on whose perspective. Like if you ask me, I'm driven. If you ask my wife, she'll say I'm obsessed. Now, that those things can have the ability to kind of eat you up though. And it's kind of like my inability to mention that today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io. I was so obsessed with talking about Jiro's obsession, I forgot the little things at hand. But, overall, like...
Well, I was going to say, so I'm a software developer at heart, and I'm a problem solver, and I'm very driven, and I can be very obsessed with particular problems, like if something's wrong or needs to be fixed or whatever. And to my own fault, because I can easily get burnt out doing it. And, especially during this time of quarantine and all of this for the last 7 weeks, I'm feeling pretty burnt out. I mean, I'm like going to force myself to take a couple days off actually over the next week, because I have just been so obsessed, working so hard. And now that we're all working at home, there's, we blur the lines between work and home life, and it's crazy. But I'm definitely that way. I can be very obsessed about, work, and it can be very detrimental to a mental health perspective. That's something that I always have to figure out how to balance.
So for myself in that same situation, I'm not as great at scheduled days. I've just learned to accept a little more that, all right, so here's the thing is you can't schedule inspiration. And I think if I feel inspired or motivated, or I'm having some moments of clarity, I try to capture them and I ride them as long as I can. That's the thing that's why, you hear me talk about my relationship with high performing musicians. And by the way, they're as fascinated with me as I am with them for different reasons. Like you look at like what we did at Full Scale. I mean, we built a company that had 200 employees within its first 18 months. Like that's a whole nother story. Yep. Now on the flip side, the reason that I'm so impressed and trying to get to the bottom of the musician thing is those dudes have to flip a switch at a specific time, and they have to fucking rock, or people are like remarkably disappointed. Now, Jiro was the same way. He's like, I can't have people come in here and not think that this was the most amazing meal that they've ever had. Right. So that's flipping that switch. And the more that I've learned about this, it's the same way with the musicians. It's preparation. Like it's all the way down to the sound check. It's the way the guitar's tuned. It's where that knob is on the foot pedal and just the amps and just like all of it. And it's also by keeping themselves in that headspace where they aren't that far away from where they need to be at the moment they need to flip the switch. Right. And that's the part that I think as an entrepreneur and a business owner is hard, because it's easy to get thrown off. Now, recently, Full Scale hired a sales director, and that's is having a very profound effect on my ability to do things that aren't just general sales activities. Like I just shared a 44-page document with you yesterday that I wrote, and about the direction of the company or different things like that. Now, if I have to work as the salesperson or doing other stuff, I'm not able to get myself in that space where I can produce. That was a long document, Now that said, it's hard to sit down and capture focus to do some certain things like that. But I'm happy I did it, but it was because of a good supporting staff. So, I mean, and that was the thing too, is back to you mentioned earlier. So Jiro flat out says, he's like, I think some of he's very humble. He says, I think some of my success or notoriety is maybe not deserved because I have the easy job. I'm the one that I do the last 5%, which, by the way, is a whole nother like labor of love too.
But I think one of the key things that wraps into that they talked about in the show is that he said, before you can make good food, you have to know the difference between good and bad food. Right. True. And that really goes to any part of business that we do, right? Like, what is good software? I mean, you can hire anybody to write software, but unless somebody that's working on it understands what it means to create good software, you can't measure against that, right? And you can't necessarily create good software. And For them, he is the final measuring stick. Everybody there knows they have to create something to his level of standards, or it's going to get thrown back in their face. And what all the work they did all day long is going to be considered a waste of time and not good enough, right? And so his presence, even if he only does 5% of the work, he has set the bar so ridiculously high, and holds everybody to that standard that they know they have to meet that level of standard from him. And just his presence forces that and creates that. And
I think that's a good leadership lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and it's, and the thing is, and back to, in Congress with that, Matt, is he's saying, hey, look, this is the standard that we operate on. Anything less than this is not how we're going to do it.
We're not serving it.
I mean, well, that's one of the things as business partners, I think you and I have always been very, very much in alignment. Like we said that with Full Scale, like we didn't intend to start that business, but as we saw an opportunity, we said, look, we need this to be a world-class offering. We need this to be something that is in alignment with what we would find acceptable as customers, or in this case, like Jiro's, like, I need this to be great at the restaurant. Now, man, I've thrown out a lot of stuff in life because I was like, this is junk, and sometimes starting over and doing it again is the best way to do it. And sometimes, but that's hard for other people. Cause like you said, like these guys might spend all day working on something and then it's like, nope, it's not there. So, and that's tough. That's tough though. That's tough for the supporting cast. Cause they're like, eventually they want to be like, well, fuck you.
Well, so another thing I think we should talk about his son some more. So
sure.
We mentioned that earlier, and he has two sons, and one of them left to go start his own restaurant after being his apprentice.
He didn't leave. Jiro told him to go. So he's like, go start your own restaurant.
And so but not only that, he told him he wasn't allowed to come back. There was no safety net. It's like, you have to make this work.
Yeah.
You have to go be successful. You're not going to come back and crash on my couch. This isn't an option. And I think that was one of the great things that he did with his, I mean, he obviously taught his sons over like many, many years to be experts at their craft. And we talk about the level of perfection and all of that, but then told them, you've got to go be successful and you got to figure it out. Right. And I think that was another cool moment in the show, is him talking about how his sons, like, he's done everything he can to prepare them. He feels confident in them, but they have to go make their own way and know that there's nothing to fall back to. They have to succeed.
And, I mean, that's that equivalent of the Vikings burning the boats.
Yeah.
There's no turning back.
Yes.
And that's something. So I used to work for a Japanese company, Roland. And, this wasn't my first exposure to some of that mentality, because this is very common in Japanese culture. The perfectionism, the dedication, the hard work, the non-acceptance of failure. But with that, that's also led to the world's highest suicide rate.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't see that failure as an option. So now I'm curious, and we hear that the modern startup and entrepreneur has really been force fed the whole concept of, hey, fail fast, it's okay, stuff like that. I'm curious how that plays over there. That would, that's a different mentality, because if you've been told your whole life, do not fail, burn the boat, dedication, don't come back, there's no turning back. I mean, that's probably a little harder. That might warrant some follow-up. Okay. So once again, today's episode of Startup Hustle is brought to you by Fullscale.io, helping you build software teams quickly and affordably. If you want to check us out on Instagram, Startup Hustle Podcast. It's pretty much the same across all social media. Now, are we going to rate these? Do we have a rating system here at Movie Night?
I think this was definitely if we're talking out of like 5 popcorn buckets, I think this was definitely a strong 4 or 5 on the rating scale. I mean, it was, especially the first half of it anyways. Definitely watch at least the first half.
Are we doing popcorn buckets? Is that how it is? And are we going on it? I'll give it 4.5 buckets of popcorn. there were a couple parts of it where it, I mean, they could have kept it moving.
Yeah, some of it's
a
slow.
little bit more. Yeah, but it's not a long, it's 79 minutes.
Yeah.
Overall. And then I think the other part is I think some people that are English speaking only will not like the subtitles.
I mean, if you definitely watch like the first 30 minutes,
you have to sit down and watch it. Yeah.
You'll get the biggest lessons out of it probably in the first 30 minutes.
But overall, I'm going to give it a 2-watch rating, though. I think you got to watch it.
Definitely,
I think it's definitely worth the time. And once again, that's Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Check out the show notes. We're gonna try to find movies that you can find on Netflix or other streaming services, so you don't have to like buy something.
So there's one other really important topic we didn't touch on. And that was his decision not to scale the business.
Oh yeah,
it only had
really got into that. This restaurant has 10 seats,
and you can't even eat there. Like you have to book it a month in advance. And I think in the 10 years or so since the movie came out, you can't even eat there at all anymore, unless you're like a famous person or you know them or whatever. And Michelin took away their stars. Because nobody can even eat there. You can't even get a reservation.
Well, and part of that was so after the movie came out, Jiro became even more famous because this has been a very watched and this is a highly regarded documentary. And he was getting a lot of no-shows. So the thing is now if you're going to book, you have to do it in person, which means you have to be there in Japan. And you have to book.
Wow.
And so that's how that goes. And then I think they also use some other services. Now, so he had a reason for doing that, but apparently one of Michelin's standards is there's a level of exclusivity that can't exist. Meaning you have to be able to, like, you and I need to be able to make
reasonably be able to get a reservation.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that son said is like his by the way, his son said, look, our food is probably almost as good or as good, but doesn't come with all of the pressure and hype of Jiro himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think
and by the way, it had his son's restaurant. He's like, but I have to charge less because of that.
Yeah. I think
it's probably only $200 a seat.
But it's interesting that he never wanted to grow the restaurant beyond what it was. Like he could have easily opened a restaurant that had 50 seats, right? But never did, which I think is really interesting.
So would you pay $300 to eat there?
As a once-in-a-lifetime thing?
I would.
Sure, yeah, why not? Yeah. I mean, I would plan a trip around. Like, I'm going to Japan, and the first thing on my list is I'm going to make sure I book that, and I will schedule everything else around that on the trip. Yeah.
So, I would go there just because I respect the hustle.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, literally, like a lot of people know me because I wear t-shirts that say respect the hustle a lot. I respect the hustle with Jiro, without a doubt. That dude's got hustle. And I mean, at 94 years old now, and Jiro is still alive. That dude, he's still around. He's still kicking. The restaurant's still open. I doubt he is too concerned about the loss of the Michelin stars.
No.
And with that, okay. So now this being the inaugural movie night, we did not effectively get to announce what the next movie will be. Are you ready, Matt?
Okay.
We're going to give you plenty of time. We're going to watch. Okay. So PBS has a series called American Experience.
Okay.
We're going to watch the one about Henry Ford.
Okay.
So it's American Experience. It's a PBS. That's PBS's brand of documentaries, but it's the one about Henry Ford. You can find it on Netflix. Ford is a very, very interesting character. A lot of failure, a lot of early failure, followed by a lot of innovation and a lot of different stuff. I figured that would be a good one because, well, I'll tell you what, if ships in the harbor rise and sink with the tide, the auto industry rises and sinks with the tide that we call the American economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
During quarantine, cars are not really getting used. My car is currently getting 3 weeks to the gallon.
Yeah.
Is yours? Oh, you have an electric car.
Yeah.
See, we have the same carbon footprint now, Matt. through not driving.
We talk about automotive. It'd be interesting if a lot more people continue to work remotely going forward and how that impacts car sales in general,
and offices and everything else. So hang on, I'm going to record the rating. So we're giving, do you have an official number of popcorn buckets here?
I'll go with 4.
You're going with 4. Okay. I'm going with 4.5.
4.
I'm going with 4.5 because, and that's, like I said, I kind of respect the hustle. I know how Jiro feels. It's like, I just want to go back to work. So with that, I'm going to do exactly that, Matt. See you next time.
Thank you.